My name is Annette Smith. I'm Executive Director of Vermont for Clean Environment.
The song of the saints. I lift mine eyes up into the hills, from whence cometh my strength.
We have, I think, a really inspiring lineup of speakers.
I've observed animals on this ridge, all native to Vermont, probably everything from a field mouse to a moose. And I'm just again awesome by the creation of nature on this ridge. It cannot be destroyed.
Promote the values of the water, the wildlife.
Is that a lot of us are disgusted with the way our government has been ganging up against us with corporations and taking our rights away. So I'm very grateful for you all coming. For us personally, we are saying goodbye to this place. And it is emotional, so I apologize, but we wanted to make it a celebration. And as citizens, we have great freedoms here, and we need to use them. It's time for us to take action and let the people, our leaders, the legislators, know that we are dissatisfied. We want change. The process is not fair. Corporations shouldn't just get their way and get away with murder. So about 2 years ago, a company called Velco laid its eye on this mountain. Velco is a giant corporation. They own and operate all the transmission lines in Vermont. And some people say it is the most powerful company in Vermont. What's happened with Velco is that they decided that the way into the future for them is to become a telecommunications company as well as a power company. So they went about constructing a network of wireless towers around the state. There are about 35 towers, and they wanted to put one of them on this mountain. So what they did is they took control of the easement for the small ham radio tower that existed here, and they informed us that they were going to come in and replace that tower with a different facility. It's going to be irradiated day and night by obscenely high levels of radiation. So to us it's clear that they're driving us out. But that's not how the PSB sees it. They're saying because they're not taking our house, their effect on us is minimal. And therefore, if we leave, that's our choice. And they're not responsible for it. Velco paid $75,000 to real estate appraisers to come up with a dollar amount of our loss. And they came up with $25,000, which is less than a third of what we had to spend just to be a part of the conversation there. So
all the money in the world from these utilities, and it seems like all the money in the world, cannot overpower thousands, hundreds of thousands of citizens that have become aware and just start making phone calls and letters and emails and speaking up and pushing and showing up at hearings, because essentially that's what worked in Maine. When the smart meter thing started happening, it worked like a snowball. One woman starting in one town and gathering momentum and moving along.
Our next speaker is Senator Robert Hartwell. He is someone who we have worked with for years on a number of issues. In fact, at one point he was on the board of my organization. And we're most fortunate to have him in the legislature and really committed to introducing legislation to change the public service board process. So,
yes.
Well, thank you, Annette. I introduced the smart meter bill, known as S214. And the utilities have been spending, I don't know how much time and money trying to frustrate my bill, but that's what they do. You can come to expect it, and we're going to have to do more, because they are clearly doing things they should not be doing in that process. But part of the reason, and one of the things that came to me very clearly in the smart meter legislation, was public participation, public say. Ordinary people getting to have a say. They don't have enough of a say anymore. That's the problem here. And it's requires a lot more work than the smart meter bill, but it was a start. And now we're going to have to work on process. Who gets to participate? Who gets listened to? How those listening tos are properly funded so that people can do it, and that organizations are heard rather than just given, here, sit over there, have your statement, and then you can leave the room if you'd like, which is pretty much what we have in my view. I'll give you an example of one thing I want to change about this process right here. I said this on the Senate floor, and some people eyebrows went up, other people said, oh yeah, so it depends on, I guess, where you're coming from at that point, but I said that under the provisions of Act 250, which is a land use law that has served our state very, very well in preserving the appearance of our Vermont, and at the same time, I think, enhancing its economy. If you build an outhouse at 2,500 feet in the state, you need an Act 250 permit. You just don't do anything at that elevation without going to the district commission, but not this. This doesn't go there. This goes to the Public Service Board, which was instructed.
Recent rulings by the Public Service Board when it comes to utility scale wind are prime examples of what's wrong with this reactionary response to climate change. We're saying, hey, it's great to put towers on our ridge lines. It's totally fine if the blades of those towers fly over the neighboring property lines. It's totally fine if we put those people out of the homes. We're doing it all in the name of saving the environment, when at the same time we're destroying an intact habitat. We're degrading our highest quality sources of water in the state, and we're walking away and saying that's what we had to do. We couldn't have thought about it. We just simply didn't have time. So we all know that that's essentially a falsehood at this point, that we need to have the most optimal response possible. And making reactionary changes like that doesn't make sense, and that's why we've ended up with this Public Service Board and a leader in the current administration that is purporting that these are the only options available to us, and it's simply not true.
So now we're going to hear from Ed Friedman, who is the now famous helicopter pilot who flew Andrea here. And he's going to tell us about his effort to take on the Maine Public Utilities Commission before the Maine Supreme Court. So, Ed?
So, I'm not afraid to fight. Probably the only poem I remember, probably because it's short, is, by the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here once the embattled farmers stood and fired the shot heard around the world. I think the system is broken. The legal system is only available for those that can afford it, and it costs a lot. And we are in that system now. But I think it's going to take people going to the streets, or blasting meters or whatever, occupying the PUC, things like that.
So first we're going to hear from Senator Randy Brock, who is a Republican candidate for governor. We could probably assume that Governor Shumlin, if invited, wouldn't come. So we're not partisan. This is just that they took the time to come. Senator Brock is from Franklin County, and he happens to represent the people in Georgia Mountain who are dealing with the latest atrocities inflicted on the neighbors. So Senator Brock, please.
Renewables has become almost a religion in Vermont. A religion that says it's good to do. And like all religions, they're great in moderation. But sometimes when that moderation goes by the wayside, as I believe it has in industrial wind, we get situations like Sheffield and Lowell and the Derby and Newark and Georgia Mountain and Grand Pasnag. And that's where we are right now. I'm concerned particularly about industrial wind and our move towards this type of renewable because, among other things, the economics. We're concerned in Vermont always about endangered species. And the one endangered species that we don't seem to care a whole lot about are the Vermont taxpayer and the Vermont ratepayer. And it's not